I used to work the night shift at a small roadside inn just outside a quiet town in Colorado. It wasn't a fancy place. 3 floors, 40 rooms, and a lobby that always smelled faintly like coffee and cleaning products. Most nights were uneventful, the kind of silence that makes the ticking of a clock sound louder than it should. That's why this one night stands out so sharply. It's been over a year now, but I still can't stop thinking about it, because every detail makes me wonder what might have happened if things had gone even slightly differently. My shift started at 10. It was late autumn, freezing outside, and the lobby was dim except for the glow of the front desk lamp. Usually, I'd have maybe 10 rooms booked during the week. Truckers, traveling salespeople, or the occasional couple passing through. After midnight, the place practically went dead. I'd sit behind the counter, file some paperwork, scroll through my phone, and keep half an eye on the security monitors. Around 11:15 p.m., the buzzer went off. Someone was at the front door. I pressed the button to let him in. He looked to be in his mid-40s, tall, a little lanky, wearing a faded brown jacket and a dark baseball cap pulled low. He carried a small gray backpack slung over one shoulder. When he stepped up to the counter, I noticed his eyes right away. They were empty, not tired, not angry, just completely blank. He asked if there were any rooms available for the night. I told him yes, quoted the price, and he nodded without saying another word. He handed me a credit card. I swiped it. It beeped like it always does when it goes through. So I handed him a room key card and told him he'd be in 207, second floor. He didn't move right away. He just stood there for a few seconds too long, looking at me. No smile, no expression, just staring. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator without a word. It unsettled me, but not enough to panic. You meet all kinds on night shift. About an hour later, I looked up from my phone and noticed something strange on the lobby camera. The man was back downstairs, just sitting on one of the couches in the lounge area. The TV wasn't even on. He was sitting completely still, staring at the blank screen. At first, I figured maybe he couldn't sleep, but after 20 or 30 minutes, he hadn't moved at all. No phone in his hands, no remote, nothing, just sitting there. When I went to grab a bottle of water from the vending machine, I felt him watching me, not glancing, not curious, but full-on watching. I tried to play it cool, but my skin was crawling by the time I sat back down at the desk. Around 1 in the morning, I opened the booking software to check which rooms were filled, mostly out of boredom. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Room 207 was marked as vacant. I blinked, thinking I misread it. I checked again. Same thing. No reservation under his name, no payment history, no record of any card transaction at all. It was like I had never checked him in. I went cold. I called the room phone just to make sure, but no one answered. Then I checked the door access log. It records every time a room door is unlocked by key card. No entries. He had never gone to the room. I slowly looked up from the monitor to the lobby. He was still there, sitting, facing the TV, motionless. Every instinct told me something was wrong. At around 1:30, I decided to ask if he needed anything. I walked over carefully and asked, "Sir, is everything okay tonight?" He turned his head toward me, so slowly it barely looked real, and said, "Just couldn't sleep." His voice was flat, low, almost too calm. Then he turned back to the blank TV. I backed away, forcing a nod, and went behind the counter again. My hands were shaking. 15 minutes later, I looked up, and he was gone. The chair was empty. My heart started pounding as I scanned the monitors. That's when I saw him standing in the hallway, near the restrooms, half in shadow, not moving. He was just there. For almost 5 minutes, he stood still like that, before walking back out to the lobby and sitting again, as if nothing had happened. That's when I called my manager. She sounded half asleep and told me, if he's not doing anything threatening, just keep an eye on him. Call the police if it escalates. I hung up, but something about her words felt wrong, because to me, the whole situation was threatening. I checked the cameras again. He was pacing the first floor hallway now. He'd walk to the end, stop, turn around, and stand perfectly still for a few minutes before pacing again. Then he entered the stairwell. He stayed in there for over 10 minutes. No movement, no sound, just gone from view. It was like he was mapping the place out, or waiting. By 3 in the morning, my nerves were shot. I called the local non-emergency police line, explained that someone might be in the building without a valid reservation. They said they'd send a patrol car. While I was waiting, the man appeared again, this time much closer to the desk. He stood maybe 15 feet away, half in the light, just watching me, not moving. He didn't blink. When the door buzzer went off, I nearly jumped out of my seat. But it wasn't the police. It was a late arriving guest coming in from the parking lot. I let the guest in quickly, pretending everything was fine. The man's head slowly turned to watch them walk past. I swear, the way he tracked their movement made my blood run cold. 5 minutes later, he was gone again. I frantically checked the cameras and saw him standing outside one of the guest room doors on the first floor, not knocking, not trying to enter, just standing there. That's when I called 911. I told them I had an intruder in the building who might be trying to get into rooms. They told me officers were on the way. Those next few minutes felt endless. He stood at that door for what felt like forever. Then he walked back toward the lobby. When he reached the desk, he leaned forward across the counter, his face way too close, and asked quietly, "Do you have any food here?" I told him there were vending machines behind him. He smiled, barely, then turned and walked away again. At 4:10 a.m., 2 officers arrived. I buzzed them in and pointed toward the lounge. He was sitting on the couch again, hands folded, staring blankly. They spoke with him for a few minutes, then escorted him outside. One of the officers came back to talk to me. He told me the man had no ID, no bags, no reservation. The credit card he used was reported stolen. He'd apparently been walking up and down the hallways for hours, using the hotel as shelter. But the way he behaved, the staring, the stillness, the officers said it wasn't normal. They arrested him for trespassing and card theft. After they left, I sat there until the sun came up, unable to stop shaking. The cameras showed he'd been wandering the halls for almost 5 hours, standing outside the doors, watching, waiting. And I'll never forget that I had unlocked the door to let him in. I still work nights sometimes, but I'll never again buzz anyone through those doors without double-checking who they really are. Because now I know, the scariest part of working the night shift isn't being alone. It's realizing you might not actually be. My name's Leah Porter, and for the past year, I've been working the overnight shift at a lonely gas station just outside Ravenbrook, Oregon. If you've ever driven through that part of the state, you'd know. Once the sun sets, the road becomes an endless tunnel of darkness and pine trees. No traffic, no neighbors, just you, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the occasional semi roaring by in the distance. It's not exactly the kind of place people stop unless they're desperate, out of gas, or lost. That's kind of why I took the job in the first place. It was quiet, predictable, or at least it used to be. It started one Thursday around 1:15 a.m. The fog outside was so thick it looked like smoke rolling off the pavement. I was standing behind the counter, trying to stay awake by reorganizing gum packs, when the door chime dinged. A man stepped in, tall, maybe mid-40s, wearing a faded brown jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. His jeans were muddy at the cuffs. Something about him felt deliberate, like he'd been watching the place for a while before coming in. He didn't go for the snacks or the coffee. He just stood near the entrance for a moment, eyes moving slowly across the room before landing on me. "Do you always work this late?" he asked. I forced a polite smile. "Yeah, most nights." He nodded, his mouth twitching like he wanted to smile back but couldn't quite manage it. "Thought so. You're here almost every time I pass by. Guess I've got a good memory for faces." That alone made me uncomfortable, but I didn't show it. He stepped closer to the counter and said, "Leah, right?" I froze. I wasn't wearing my name tag. Before I could ask, he nodded toward the whiteboard behind me where I had written in marker, "Pump 3 out of order. Sorry for the inconvenience." He smiled faintly. "You write your Y's funny, almost like you're carving them. Kind of distinctive." There was a long pause. Then, just as suddenly as he came in, he turned and left. No purchase, no goodbye, just that same mechanical chime and the fog swallowing him whole. I tried to brush it off as nothing, but over the next few weeks, he came back. Not every night, just enough to make it impossible to ignore. Sometimes he'd pull into the lot and sit in his car, with the engine running, no headlights. Sometimes he'd come in and wander around the aisles, not really looking at anything. The weirdest part was the way he talked, always calm, never threatening. "You ever get nervous being out here all alone?" he asked once, as I scanned a water bottle he didn't really want. "I'm fine," I replied. He leaned against the counter. "You keep that back door locked every night, huh?" "Smart. Most people forget." He said it casually, like it was a compliment. But my stomach twisted. He'd been watching me long enough to notice my habits. When he finally walked out, I locked every door in the building twice. That was the night I started carrying pepper spray in my apron pocket. I'd checked the security cameras every hour. I even started parking my car closer to the door, just in case I ever had to sprint for it. Days would go by without a sighting, but that didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it was worse, because I never knew when he'd come back. Then one night, I came in from my break and found a Polaroid on the counter. It was me, taken from outside. I was refilling the windshield washer fluid near the pumps. The angle was close, too close. The flash had caught the reflection of my name stitched on my jacket. There was no note, just a small red circle drawn around one of the letters in my name. I filed a report, but the police didn't do much. They said maybe a prank, maybe someone I knew. The next time he showed up, I didn't hold back. "I'm calling the cops," I said before he even spoke. He held up his hands, expression flat. "I didn't mean to scare you. You followed me. You took pictures of me." He didn't argue. He just said, "I notice things. That's all." I told him to get out. He stepped back, watching me like he was memorizing every twitch of my face. Then he said, "You think I'm dangerous, but all I've ever done is pay attention." That line still makes my skin crawl. When the cops finally showed up, he didn't resist. They searched his car and found notebooks, pages and pages of times, dates, and notes about me. One page had my name written dozens of times until it bled into black scribbles. He kept repeating, "I'm not obsessed. I'm observant." After that, I was transferred to another location, about 2 hours away, in a slightly busier town called Elmer Ridge. For a while, I thought it was over, but paranoia doesn't disappear that easily. Every time I saw headlights in my rearview mirror that didn't change lanes, I'd feel that same tightness in my chest. It's been 3 months since the arrest, and I work nights again. I thought maybe distance would help me move on, but last night changed that. It was around 2:45 a.m., quiet except for the hum of the cooler in the back. A car was parked at the far edge of the lot, engine running, lights off. At first, I thought maybe someone was waiting for a DoorDash order or a friend. That's common enough. But after 10 minutes, I noticed the same car hadn't moved. The cameras couldn't quite catch that corner of the lot. I walked around to the side window to get a better view. A dark silver sedan. No plates. The driver was barely visible, just a silhouette behind fogged glass. A group of college kids came in soon after, laughing. Loud, the kind of sound that fills the air and makes you feel safer. They bought snacks, coffee, started joking around. Then one of them asked me, "Hey, you know there's a car sitting way out there? Looks kinda sketchy." My heart dropped. "Silver sedan?" I asked. "Yeah," one said. "No plates, just sitting there with someone inside." I forced a laugh, probably just waiting for a pickup. But the look on their faces told me they didn't buy it. When they left, they decided to hang around their truck for a while, smoking and playing music. About 20 minutes later, one of them came back in. "The guy in the car just left," he said. "He was staring at us, then drove off as soon as we noticed him." I tried to act relieved, but I could barely speak. The rest of my shift was quiet, but every shadow in the corner of the store felt like it was watching me. Tonight, I came in early, around 11:30 p.m. I wanted to feel in control for once. But when I parked, I noticed something that made my stomach knot up. A different car, parked in the same exact spot as the silver sedan. Engine running, lights off. This one was black, windows tinted. I went inside and tried to focus on stocking the fridge, counting the register, doing anything that didn't involve looking outside. But the cameras kept flickering, and when I stepped into the back to grab a mop, I saw it. A second car, pulling into the lot. Another black sedan, no plates. I froze. Both cars sat there for several minutes, no movement. Then slowly, the first one pulled out of the lot. The second followed. Nothing else happened that night. But when I got home this morning, I found something taped to my apartment door. It was another Polaroid. This one wasn't taken at the gas station. It was taken from inside my parking garage, and in the background, my car. My license plate circled in red ink. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if he's working with someone now. All I know is that the world feels smaller every night, and the space between the shadows feels shorter. Sometimes, when I look into the security camera monitor, I swear I can see movement behind the reflection of my own face. I quit today. But quitting won't change the fact that someone out there still knows my name and how I write my whys. My name is Ryan. I'm 28, and I work the overnight shift at a small family-run motel called Willow Pines Inn. It's nothing fancy, 2 floors, about 30 rooms, and quiet almost all year except for the occasional traveler passing through. I work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights are painfully boring, which is exactly why I took the job. I'm not much of a people person, so sitting alone in an empty building fits me perfectly. The front office is simple: a desk, a couple of chairs, a coffee machine, and a small rack of brochures for local attractions. Behind the desk is a small back office lounge with a couch, a mini fridge, and a TV mounted to the wall. There's also a speaker system that dings whenever someone rings the bell at the front desk. That little ding is usually all I need to get up and help a guest. I've worked here long enough to know every little noise. The heater clicks, the floors creak, the front doors buzz when a card is swiped, all normal. But when you're alone in the dark for hours, even normal noises can start to feel wrong. This happened one October night. It was cold outside, around 42 degrees, and the parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few cars belonging to guests. Around 2 a.m., I heard the bell ring. I stood up and walked to the front desk, but nobody was there. The lobby was empty. I checked outside. The road was dark and quiet, not a single car in sight. I shrugged it off. Maybe I had imagined it. About 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. This time, I was already tense. I ran to the desk. Again, nothing. The lobby was empty. My skin crawled. I stepped outside, scanning the parking lot and the surrounding road with my phone flashlight, but everything was still. No movement, no headlights, just silence. I went back inside and decided to sit behind the desk instead of returning to the back office. If someone was hiding and ringing the bell to mess with me, I wanted to catch them. I dimmed the lobby lights slightly, folded my arms, and waited. 15 minutes passed. 20. My eyes started to get heavy. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. Then the bell rang again, and this time, I saw it. A pale hand shot out from under the front desk, pressing the bell right in front of me. I jumped back so fast I almost knocked over my chair. My heart was hammering. I bolted down the hall to the back office and slammed the door, locking it behind me. I could barely breathe. My mind was racing. How had someone even gotten under the desk? The space was tiny, not designed for a person to crouch in. Whoever it was had been waiting just a few feet from me. I forced myself to look at the security monitors. There are 4 cameras, one on the lobby, one on the hallway, and 2 covering the parking lot. On the lobby feed, I saw the chair had tipped over in my rush. The counter looked empty, until I noticed movement in the corner of the frame. A shadowy figure slowly crawled out from under the desk on all 4s. I couldn't see details clearly, just a tall figure in a dark hoodie, hunched, gliding across the lobby floor. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. I whispered to the dispatcher that someone had broken in and was hiding in the lobby. She told me to stay put, stay calm, and that officers were on the way. Through the camera feed, I watched the figure stand up and start pacing the lobby. At one point, it stopped at the glass doors, staring out as if waiting for someone. Then it wandered over to the brochure rack, flipping through papers aimlessly, almost tauntingly. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, flashing blue and red lights appeared in the parking lot. 2 patrol cars. The intruder bolted out of the camera frame just as the front doors swung open. Officers came in and cleared the building. They found a large rock near the front door, presumably used to prop it open, but there was no sign of the intruder inside. Whoever it was had slipped away just before they arrived. Even after the incident, every time I hear the bell at night, my stomach twists. I replay that night in my head constantly. The idea that someone had been crouched mere feet from me, moving silently under the desk. It's impossible to shake. I stayed on shift for the next few weeks, but I couldn't get comfortable. Every small noise felt amplified. A floorboard squeak, the hum of the heater, the soft click of the fridge. My coworkers tried to reassure me, but they hadn't experienced it. I'd catch myself staring at the front desk, imagining that pale hand popping out from under it again. One night, a guest called down to report something strange. Their room had been untouched, doors locked, nothing missing. But when they checked the camera feed outside, they'd seen a shadowy figure moving around the parking lot. I froze. That figure had the same posture, the same slow, deliberate movements I'd seen before. Whoever it was had returned. After that, my manager moved me to the day shift. I couldn't bear the idea of being alone in that lobby at night again. But even now, months later, I get chills when I think about that night. The motel hasn't had any incidents since, at least none reported, but that doesn't make it any less terrifying to remember. I've tried to rationalize it. Maybe a homeless person hiding, maybe a prankster, but nothing explains the precision, the patience, the way they waited under the desk, stalking the little sounds I made, the timing of every movement. It was deliberate, and I know that if the officers had arrived a minute later, who knows what could have happened. That night taught me something I'll never forget. It's not the obvious dangers you need to fear. It's the quiet ones, hiding just out of sight, watching, waiting, and studying every small detail. Even now, whenever I drive past that stretch of road or pass a motel, I glance at the parking lot, half expecting to see a shadow crouched just out of view. The memory of that pale hand under the desk will haunt me forever.